Hello, my name is Umahi Abu, and I'm a trading analyst that has been selected by my company to conduct an internal professional development training for the recently promoted managers and directors in my company. My presentation is a plan on how I would explain the principle of foreign exchange, the way exchange rates are determined, and the effects of the rising and falling value of the dollar. Now, I will kick off my presentation by explaining the Ricardian model of trade, which states that two countries producing a good will have uh, this equal opportunity cost, and the two countries producing the goods will produce it with one factor of production. The Ricardian model of international trade also brings about the principle of the comparative advantage, which is the ability of a country to produce a good at a lower opportunity cost than another country. Now, the understanding of the Ricardian model as a whole will help increase output and will help the managers focus the production of the company on places where we have a where we have a comparative advantage, and target countries that do not have comparative advantage in those areas by selling products to them, which will increase the total output and sales for the company. I will equally explain the limitations of the Ricardian model, which is that having one factor of production is too simplistic, and that the principle of comparative advantage does not apply to all countries, because not all countries will produce goods that they have a comparative advantage in. In my presentation, I will equally explain the other two models of international trade, which are the Heckler-Ohlin model, which evaluates the equilibrium of trade between two countries that have varying natural resources and specialties. And then I will equally explain the third one, which is the specific factors model, which is designed to evaluate the real world phenomenon that more factors of production are mobile in some countries than others. The understanding of these three concepts will help explain what foreign exchange is and how it works in other countries, and it will help in the allocation of resources by the managers and the direct. It will equally help in increasing the returns made to factors of production in the company. I will equally explain the basic economic concepts such as supply and demand. Demand being the quantity of goods and services that consumers are willing to buy at a particular price, and supply being the amount of goods and services that a producer is ready to bring to a market at a particular price. The understanding of the forces of demand and supply will help in understanding the way exchange rates are determined. And I will equally explain the production, which is the conversion of natural resources into finished goods. I will explain the concept of distribution, which is the movement of goods and services from the producer to the consumer. I will equally explain the concept of consumption, which is the utility that a consumer derives from a particular good and service. And I will equally explain the concept of inflation and deflation. Inflation is the overall rise in the prices of goods and services, while deflation is the overall fall in the prices of goods and services. I will equally explain the market economy, which all the economic decisions are driven by forces of demand and supply. In the command economy, that all the economic decisions are made basically by the government officials. The understanding of these concepts will help in comparing and contrasting local, regional, and national economics as a whole. And then I would also explain the role of money as a medium of exchange, and how it acts in reducing the form of the transaction cost. And I will equally explain the role of banking in securing valuables and giving out loans, and I will equally explain the role of savings in investments and spending. which these three concepts are basically the backbone of foreign exchange. The more people save in the bank, the more they're willing to save, the more they're willing to, spend. And the more banks give loans, the more people are spending those loans on other stuff. And money serves as a medium of exchange between two people and a country as a whole, in exchanging goods and services. In my presentation, I'll equally explain the three economic models, which are the classical, which assumes that the economy works on the laissez-faire model of economic freedom; the neoclassical, which states that demand and supply are the main determinants of production, price, and consumption. You have the Keynesian, which assumes that total spending has effects on the output, employment, and inflation in a country. These models will help in the explanation and prediction of economic issues and problems. I will also explain the impact of the US economy on international trade, which brings about higher wages for the workers. And I will define the different economic systems, which are capitalism, socialism, and mixed economy, with how it affects foreign exchange. I will equally explain the concept of foreign exchange, which is the conversion of one currency to another currency. I will equally explain how foreign exchange is determined by the forces of demand and supply. And I will explain the effects of the rising to falling value of dollar, which is that if the dollar falls, it will drive the import prices higher, and if the US dollar gains value, it will buy more of a foreign currency. So that is the end of my presentation. All these I plan to implement in my plan to enlighten the managers and directors.